Hey guys, so first I want to apologize for sounding so awful. I did not realize when I was going to be introducing this activity via screencast that I was going to sound like death itself. So I apologize for that if you could just bear with me. I'm going to go over the third studio activity, which is due next Monday. I'm going to go over it from the home page, and I am in student view right now just so that my screen looks like your screen and not like professor's screen. So there's two places you could find it. It isn't up yet because it's not, I guess, a recent activity because it's not due for a week. But eventually it'll be under this like to-do list. Or you can find it by going into Unit 1 and then scrolling down to the Unit Studio homepage. And then this is Studio 3. So I'm going to go ahead and click here. So the major kind of objective for this activity is to almost transition from deciding what your LOI is into your research. So you're going to be doing two things. You're going to be proposing your LOI, so kind of pretty briefly explaining some things that I need to know about your LOI to get kind of a go-ahead for me to let you know if I have any concerns about what you're doing. And also, you've been kind of gathering some research through some of the studio work and some of the prep work, and to kind of compile all that into one place and create like a working bibliography, just to kind of house all your sources in one place, because you're doing, sometimes with prep and studio work and major assignments, like so many different things and having sources all over the place, and it just gives you a place to bring everything together and keep track of it easily. So again, this is due Monday, February 11th, so that's next Monday, so you've got about a week to work on this. You're going to put everything in a single document. This is actually going to be from your Google Drive folder for this class. The one that, if you remember, it's on the calendar from like the first week or two of class. We're asking you to create a folder in your Google Drive for this class for UWRT 1104. So you're going to create a file within that folder for me to be able to see this activity on. And then, of course, you have to have a 4.4 out of 5 to get a complete, and the details for that are on the rubric. Okay, so there's two steps. First step is propose your LOI. So you're going to write kind of a brief, informal sort of proposal of your LOI. And a proposal is just where you're kind of like pitching an idea to get the go-ahead on a project, which is what you're doing. So you have to include a couple of things. One is a description of the LOI. So just in a couple sentences or in a question, like what are you looking into? What's the issue? What are you trying to figure out? And including any like revisions to wording that you may have been working on. Why, did you ultimately choose it? Or why you ultimately, decided on this? Why it's important or relevant? So who would it matter to? And what concerns, if any, are you having so far with the research? So do you have any bias? Are you having trouble, like right now, finding sources? Are you worried it's close to something on the banned list? Like what might be something that you're kind of having trouble with? At least 100 words. This is not very long. It's just for me to get a kind of sense of what you're doing and where you are. I do want to give you a warning. This is kind of your official proposal, even though it's a brief. Once you submit this, we're diving into your research guide. So once this is submitted, it's approved, you can't switch your topic, or you can't switch your subject. That doesn't mean you can't tweak it. As I said, like earlier in the semester, you never know what you're going to find. So you're welcome to leave some wiggle room to be able to, switch your focus or tweak where you're going with the topic. So like if I were researching standardized tests, I could maybe tweak my focus to not just focus on just standardized tests, maybe open it up to research more and think more about what other like models of assessment or learning there are. But I couldn't decide, like, I think I'm going to do stem cell research. So, makes sense. So that's what you're doing for the first part. So, easy. The second part is to create a working bibliography, and it is just sort of go back to like maybe your Wikipedia prep work, your stuff from the library, your previous studio work, take all the sources you've been collecting, put them into one place so that I can see them, you can see them, you can come back and kind of, use this to keep track of what you're doing. So a working bibliography is like just a draft of the bibliography, and a bibliography is not like a works cited page. It's not sources that you're necessarily going to use. It's basically just a list of things you're reading or considering during your research process. So this doesn't necessarily have to be stuff that you've read. It can be stuff you're just thinking about or looks good right now. So basically this is just to help you kind of keep track of your research as it's kind of starting to pile up, and will continue to do so. You can organize it any way you want to, as long as for each source you have this: a hyperlink, a bibliographic citation in either MLA, APA, or Chicago. And if you need help with that, I have some of that down here at the bottom. I recommend that people either pick the one they're most comfortable with, or pick the one that you're going to have to use for your major anyway, so you have some time to practice. And some kind of personal notes. It could be a quote, a piece of information, a note to yourself to remind you why you're keeping it. This is for you, so it's up to you kind of what you want to put here. You got at least 10. You can keep as many as you need to, as many as you have so far. And remember, this is just to track your research and give you access to everything in one place. When you're done with that, scroll up to the top to submit this assignment. And I want to just scroll down to the bottom really quick where the rubric is, just to kind of hit those 4 points that you need, not 4 points, but 4 items that you need to get your 5 points. As usual, you have to get 4.4 out of 5, which is an 88. I think it's the rubric is pretty self-explanatory, but your proposal has to be complete, so it's 100 words, answers all those questions and prompts that are listed. Your LOI has been approved, so I don't see any glaring issues. It doesn't mean you might not need to tweak it later, but it is sort of you get this point, and that means this is your topic. We've agreed, and you can again maybe tweak it later, but you can't change topics after this. You have a working bibliography that's got at least 10 sources on it. Again, that's a minimum. You probably have a lot more than that at this point. And appropriate information is recorded for each source. So you're keeping things like you're keeping your hyperlinks, and you're keeping your bibliographic citations in either of the MLA, APA, or Chicago. And again, there's some resources for that if you need it. And then you're keeping whatever personal notes you think will be helpful to you as you come back and kind of access this work. So that's it. Feel free to email me or ask me in class if you have any questions. Bye. If you want to just take a second to look at the rubric,